Hello, welcome to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast, a podcast helping people to understand their horses better to provide solutions in a calm, connected way. I'm Jenny Barnes.
And I'm Mark Langley.
Hi Mark, your first question for today is from Monica. She's got a question that's quite similar to Susan. They're both wanting to know how they can get their horse to go into a canter in a round yard without chasing them. So with Monica, she has a young horse who she started using your program, so well done Monica, that's great. She'd like to practice the canter without driving. He offers a fast trot, but he just won't pop into the canter, so she's wondering if you can help with ideas on that. And Sue has a slightly older horse who she's unfortunately come off, and her trainer's advice is to lunge him in the round yard for a while before riding, and she doesn't want to chase. Same thing, and she's tried to get the canter with the halter and the long lead, but without any success. Her question is also, is there any way that she can get her horse to canter at liberty with a tap at the girth area, or is that classified as a chase? So a couple of questions for you there, Mark.
Over the years of my quest of trying to figure out better ways to sort of, or alternatives to sort of have, an alternative to driving, is I've sort of tried to figure out other ways and of getting, operating, motivating horses to search and do things. And a lot of it, as people have already sort of heard me say before, is you get them back to, a lot of things stem back to leading, and because a lot of things we're asking is we step up with the leading hand, and then the horses to follow through with that. And in a lot of cases, the common training that I see is, you pick up your leading hand. If the horse doesn't respond, then you go to the drive line and push through. Now, driving a horse constantly, so you've got to work out. Like, there's times when I was starting young horses, and it's not like I had a heap of time, especially professionally, to do every single bit of groundwork perfectly. So there was, so everything just fell into place. There's times that you could almost say that I would cut a corner, but I knew I cut a corner, and I wasn't consistently doing a certain thing. So where people sort of fall into the trap of driving is they use driving for everything. So, they point the horse over there, they push energy into it, the horse moves away from the energy, kind of escapes from them. And then to go faster, they do the same thing. And then when they leg yield, when they, chase a horse with their legs, it's all kind of like the horse is just being driven by this pressure that it kind of just moves away from. And constant driving sets up a really bad feeling in a horse. But there's times there where once the horse has got the idea, and like first of all with the young horse, like the young Arab, it's already got the idea how to follow a field forward into a walk, into a trot, and then that last bit where it's a bit anxious to canter, so instead of cantering it just trots faster, which is actually a pretty good thing, that it's still getting a fair bit of speed in the trot, but it just doesn't want to canter. So there's times that I'll kind of carry a flag or something like that by my side. But the reason I don't just say, just go and get a flag and just make it happen, is because I find people, I worry that people might just go to, we'll just cut the corner and it'll be right. I really like people to think about how they can improve their, the transitions and their skill set to get a horse to sort of build ready to canter, instead of just cut that corner and get a cantering so you can see it canter. But there's a lot of times when I was starting horses that I had to see a horse carry a saddle at a canter, so I knew it wasn't going to sort of go ballistic and that. So I just kind of hurried up. I'd pop the flag, and that'd be a sharp little pop, and it'd pop up into canter, and I'd see that canter. I know that I'd seen the canter, and once I'd seen the canter, I go, beauty, I've seen the canter. The horse is okay with it. But I didn't sort of make it canter every single day and chase it round in circles just so I could have it cantering. I just needed to see the canter. There's no advantage of sending a horse around at a canter, around and round and round consistently. There's more advantage in transitions and, the horse connecting and thinking about what it's doing and up and down. So to improve, and in both horses' cases, to prepare the horse for canter, there's a technique that I use, and it's I slow down and I push up. So if you both have already tried that sort of leading through with the horse, I push up and the horse comes up, and then I slow down again, and I get the horse to slow down, and then I push up, and then I slow down, and then I push up. So the horse is going up and then back and up and then back until that's really kind of strong, almost like using a leg aid where you're sort of squeezing and the horse is a bit dull to start with, and then all of a sudden you squeeze and the horse is really coming up nice with your legs. And I think in a lot of cases we ask for the canter, but if we actually really look at the quality of the transition and how well the horse is engaging with us and that up and down and up and down, you find that actually there's a lot of work that could be done in the earlier transitions. So when the horse is around you on the circle, you slow down, because it's like though you might, and I'll move on to the older horse, but for now, for the young horse, just because it's a young Arab, it doesn't mean you have to turn it into an endurance horse when you're lunging it. So by going around, getting tired, you're gonna, you just get it really good at accelerating. So you go right back to a walk, and if you lift up that leading hand, it comes up nice and bright, and then it comes in. What they do is they start to, you start to set it up so the horse realizes that when you push your hand forward and that lead rope knot goes forward and shifts a little, the horse is to go in front, and their eyes to get in front either of your leading hand or your shoulder. So when you say my shoulder goes up, the horse goes, I get in front, and then you slow down again, and then you do it again, and then the horse realizes that the sooner I get in front, the sooner the pressure off the pole or that changes, and then soon enough, the quicker you do that, the more effort the horse puts into going from slow to faster, and then you'll get to a point that you're doing that, and then you'll just all of a sudden you'll go push, and the horse will kind of pop into that canter. So that's the sort of ideal way if you're really trying to work on your leading hand to get the horse really good at doing that canter. But to cut a corner, once the horse is going pretty good, just to help with it just a little bit more sort of energy in the air, you might just lift and maybe pop the flag, and the horse will go whoop, and it'll just be enough to get the horse into a canter, and that flag will help you. So you'll see me sometimes when the horse is lagging on a lead, I'll kind of pop the flag a little and get it to come up a little brighter. That's the aim. If I sort of said just start to push into the loins and the drive line, sometimes it's easy to get into that habit of just pushing them forward. I will sometimes do that myself. I might just put a bit of drive in the horse to say move forward faster, but I'm very conscious of the fact that the horse is just to get the canter, and I just leave it alone. It's only enough to get it to step into the next thing, and then I leave it and let it sort of carry itself. It's when you get into the habit of using drive for everything, like push here, push there, that you really sour your horses. But yeah, every now and again, if you use it a little bit just to get what you want to see it and help so the horse can get into the canter, and then once you've got that, then you'll go back to say, well, I don't need to drive now. You know how to get that now, so I'm just going to go back to leading you into that canter. And for the with the horse about the lunging at liberty and the stick and things like that, that's fine. Like I've had long sticks on horses, and I've just sort of added a bit of extra pressure. Like a stick aid on a horse's back, if you're careful with it, it's only a pressure it's a stimulant that gets a horse to sort of go, oh, something's happening, I might change, and they change. But it's very easy to end up sort of pushing a horse constantly with a stick aid, and the horse's thoughts are back on the stick aid. Now if I use a flag, like I might use a long flag on a stick and just shake it over the horse's back, and the horse will kind of wriggle forward a bit faster, and that'll be good. And it's just the same as me wriggling my legs or bumping my legs for the horse to go a little faster. But what happens when you're using a flag on a long stick or something like that, the flag stays with the horse, it doesn't escape from the flag. So what you don't want to sort of say is, I'm going to shake this, at the horse, and the horse goes, oh, that's scary, I'm going to run over there. And then the horse thinks, if I escape from that flag, I'm safe. So that would be the horse thinking it's escaping from a stick aid or a flag aid. But if you just had the stick aid on the horse and put a bit of stimulant on the horse and it can feel it, and it just goes a bit faster, and you just soften the feel of that stimulant, but the stick or the flag just is still sitting on the horse as it's travelling faster, then it's more like a leg aid. It's just the feeling of that gets them to search and go faster, not them seeing it coming and having to escape from it. So if you're using a stick aid wherever you want to do it, then that's the way I would use it. You don't want to sort of get your horse, you don't want to be you don't want to be so adamant that you want to get a canter that you start banging the horse with the stick that hard that it just gets a pain and just runs away from it. If you get to that stage, it means you haven't done your homework, and there's more things, more foundation and more transition that you have to work on. And just like I was saying about the young Arab, the more you get that horse to hone in on that come up and come down and come up. And I've had horses on a long line at a clinic where I've just gone up and down and up and down and up and down, and then when I feel that horse is ready, I just go one big up, and the horse goes put up into the canter, and away it goes. But it took me a fair bit of tuning that horse, in the sense of getting that horse really into that sort of rhythm of coming up and down, till the horse was really wanting to step up in front and knowing what its responsibility was to do that. And I find sometimes our desire to get walk, trot and canter, I'm lunging now, walk, trot, canter, is stronger than maybe spending 2 or 3 days getting a horse to foal or feel better. So I might spend a week getting a horse to walk around me in balance, if I had the time, and if you've got a bit of time, well, I would rather work on the horse following a feel than, oh beauty, I can see the horse canter. And just going on a little bit with your horse, the one that's the trainers encourage you to lunge it around. The reason why I think you're lunging it is because it's frightened and it ran off on you. So lunging it around is not going to stop it from wanting to run away from you, because lunging away from pressure is only reinforcing the fact that if you put a worried pressure there that worries the horse enough, it is to seek refuge away from it. So to me, when people say round pen your horse, send it around a round pen or lunge it because the horse is frightened, you're only saying to the horse, I'm going to put a dangerous stick here that you're a bit worried, and you run away from it. So the horse is only learning to escape from danger by doing that. So you're only, actually to me, you're only reinforcing bolting and stuff like that. I would probably work on your horse getting a lot closer, coming in, feeling comfortable with you, and then work on good leading transitions into lunging, so the horse never thought that it got away from you and your pressure. It just sort of was a conversation that the horse ended up trotting around you or cantering around you. That's the way I'd be looking at it.
I'm glad you answered that last bit, because I was going to ask you what Sue could be doing then, but that's wonderful. So I hope that helps Sue and Monica, and let us know how you go with them. So staying with that faster horses, the next question mark is from Helen. She has a gelding who is absolutely fine out on trail, but just started to want to race towards home. Only at a trot, but the trot does get faster and faster until he feels like he's running on the forehand. She's tried to make the trot uncomfortable by getting out of rhythm, which does slow him down a little bit. And also she's tried lifting one rein and asking for a shoulder in type of manoeuvre, which works momentarily, but as soon as she releases the rein, he wants to go again. She only asked for a trot from a slow trot, and that doesn't last long. He's quickly into the faster one. He is also happy to walk if she doesn't ask for a trot. So she's not sure if this is related to a balance. Is maybe her trot not quite right and he's losing balance in his stride? Or is it possibly his destination thought that's taking him home? And is there any way to tell which one?
Yeah, it's a funny one, that one, Helen, because it's like, oh, everything seems good at the walk and you just speed it up, and then it all sort of starts to unwind. And I guess he's been a pretty cool, calm horse, but as you know, and we've sort of looked at it clinics with him, is he's been a little bit shut down as well, and there's times when he probably chirps up, even when, you know, years ago before I met you and stuff, that under certain pressure and his anxiety comes out, and I get the feeling, I don't think he's trying to rush forward because he's out of balance. I think it's more so because of a stronger thought for destination, because if it was out of balance it'd be both directions. You know, I think you said it was more so going home, and yeah, if he was out of balance and felt uncomfortable, it don't matter which way you trot, he'd kind of rush or get a bit funny in it. So I'd rule out, well, though I know him, and I know that you know him well enough to know that he does carry himself in his forehand a lot, and he could be a lot softer. I don't think him, you know, feeling out of balance because it's on his forehand's making him trot faster because it's only in one direction. Okay, so so because it's in the homeward direction, it's he might be walking, just kind of going, yeah, okay, I'm walking, but then all of a sudden, but also actually, Helen, here's an experiment, and I'd say this to everybody, is on the way home, it's actually everybody, and me, I'm the same. I'm going to sort of blame everybody for this, because I'm blaming myself for this, because this is something I just got in the habit of doing, riding lots of horses. Is I just, you know, most horses, if they had a good walk, I'd ride in their walk, and I'd be riding their walk all day long. And if they had a reasonable trot, especially the young ones, you know, I had to get certain transitions right, that they could go between the gates pretty smoothly, and they could steer and back up and start some basic lateral work. But really, to be honest, I sort of used to like quite a good walking horses, so I would have fallen into the habit of just riding the horses at their walk that they offer. And some horses, it's different. It's how they walk and how they trot and how they canter are quite different, and the more anxiety comes out, if there's already a bit of underlying anxiety in there, and he's got a strong destination thought, his walk will be a certain speed, and he gets to the top of his walk and he just trudges along, and he won't walk any faster. His next gait will be trot. Some horses have got a wall between every gate, others don't. So the ones that don't are a bit harder to ride, because the ones that don't, people hang on to like that. They're those kind of zzz horses like that. So if someone loosens the rein on those horses that have got strong thoughts, they just go walk, and then they go into a trot, and then they go into a canter, and then they go into a gallop. They just kind of, you feed the rein out and they'll just go zoom. Now there's other horses, and your horse would fit more into this category, is they'll kind of walk at their fast walk, but every gait is almost like, canter might be different, canter to gallop, but basically from the walk to the trot, there's like a door, and it's closed until you open it by asking for the next gate. But they'll just go zip up to the door, and they'll be waiting at the door. They won't bust through the door. Even on a loose rein, they won't bust through the door. They'll just wait at the door until you open the door by saying, go into the next gate. And then they'll go zip up to the next door until you ask him into canter. Now, he may fall, but most horses tend to have the door at the walk, and then after the walk, then they kind of just rush. So what your job, I think, to experiment with is on the way home especially, is find out if he's doing it in the walk secretly. You might be happy with his kind of semi-whatever walk that he does, but I want you to see how close to the doorway into trot. What I mean is that's the transition, where he transitions from walk to trot naturally without a lot of, help. The spot that he would usually do it if you just let him kind of go up without saying trot now. So I'd pull him, and I'd pull him right back to the start of walk, as I'd slow him down, and I'd loosen on him and find out if he goes, walks back up fast to that doorway again, and practice that. And you might find that he's actually doing it in the walk. It's just that his walk is one of those walks you can walk all day on a loose rein and feel okay with it, but it's still knocking on the door a trot. But for him it may not feel like that compared to another horse. And the only way you test that is by slowing it down a little and then loosening it up, and then whoop, and you'll feel him push up to that spot again. And if a horse is doing that in the walk, well, you know they're going to do that in the trot. Okay, so it's a good experiment at the walk, because the walk is the one where he's going to have less anxiety. The trot, you're going to add more anxiety, and then the canter maybe more anxiety again, especially because the destination thought on the way home. So what I would do is I'd slow him down in the walk until his thoughts change, and then I'd loosen up. And then he'd go like that, and he'd speed up, and then say no, slow him down again, and then loosen up and relax. And because you're going to have more chance of getting a stronger thought change in the walk. Even if you've got to back him up some to say let go of that forward thought and then loosen up, and then just let him off again. Until you can loosen the reins in the walk and you feel him go, I'm with you, I'm not destinating, and then you just relax a little and just let him go for a bit. As soon as you feel him sort of push up to that doorway again, slow him down, loosen up until you don't feel him kind of walk up the walk to that kind of, because a lot of horses have this locked in walk, and that's what I was just saying before. It's easy to let a horse lock into their walk, but if you take them out of that walk and slow them down, they'll just constantly go back to that lock-in walk that they tend to do. And if we're happy with that walk, that's the problem. If it's the walk we're happy with, we allow them to lock into that walk too much. But it's a problem when we put them out of that walk into a trot and then they kind of speed up, because and also do an experiment at the trot. Like, I like experimenting with horses. That's how you learn off your horses, I suppose, by experimenting. But when you get into the trot, just do an experiment. He is rushing at the trot, but let him rush at the trot and see if he stops at the doorway to canter or he just keeps going into canter. Okay, that's just an experiment. He might just get to his fastest trot and not canter, but he's just rushing to the next gate. But once you've got it soft in the walk, then you ask him to go into trot by listening to you and say trot like this, and he'll go like this, and you go very good, loosen up on him. If he says, but can I go to the gate, or can I go to that doorway? No, come back and listen. Now relax. And so experiment in the walk till you can put him in different walks on the way home, and he can set a loose rein speed that he can walk in different walks, and then go back and practice in the trot, and you might find you've sorted a reasonable amount of it out in the walk. There are other things you can do if he has got strong destination thoughts, which really fixated. You can say, let go of that, let's ride over here. Oh, back up here, maybe let's ride over here, and let's do a trot across the direction. Instead of going straight for home, you might just do a crossways trot, and you might go, oh, let's slow down there. And you just get him thinking about some different things. So that's other things you can also look at to try and help him out. But yeah, do a bit of experimenting in that walk to find out if that leaks in the walk, because I'd say you might find it's in there too.
Mark, your next question is from Ira. She has a horse that's hard to turn when riding. No problems to stop or back up, but she needs to pull really hard on the reins, and she rides in a halter. Have you got any idea about how to help her? And by the way, she says she's thanks because her horse is now self-loading in the float and slowly goes off the float, and that's thanks to what she's been doing since she's been to your clinic.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear positive progress like that. That's really nice. Yeah, that's great, Ira. So it's with the turning, the horse has learned to brace against the reins, and some just haven't been taught to steer. And it's very easy for horses to get in a bit of a set where they just kind of lock up, and sometimes if they do turn, they're still stiff like a board and they just kind of motorbike over. Now, there's a certain amount of sort of flexion you can do, but you don't want to overdo flexion, because usually when you bend your horse, when it's moving, that's when you'll still feel brace. If you just, have the horse bending, when they move their feet, a lot of those horses still have brace in them. So I try to get those, there's a point with a really heavy horse that's bracing, because you're in a halter. I don't encourage a halter or a side pull, probably preferably a side pull sometimes. might be better for yourself because it gives you a good lateral sort of, the reine's coming from each side, so it's very a little bit more decisive on what side the reine's getting picked up on, and the horse will feel that rein, or the left rein or right rein. Whereas when you're riding a bit of a bracey horse in a halter, sometimes it's easy to get a little lock in the jaw, because it's a bit like a hackamore that's got a bosal on it. It's very easy to get a brace in a horse through that. So sometimes if you want a bit more bend and turn in your horses, it can be advantageous to go to a side pull, and also the direction that what's on their nose, the ring around their nose, the band that's around their nose, the direction that the reine's pulling is causing it to go in the direction that you want the head to bend as well. Obviously, it's a thought that brings the bend around correctly and the horse thinking around. But sometimes you've got to get a horse to let go of pushing first. So something you might want to look at before I would actually turn, I would do a little bit of like standing still and getting the horse to engage with each rein. So the first thing I'd look at is just seeing if your horse can stand still, pick up your right rein. If the horse flicks an ear, it softly bends to the right, and you just loosen the rein, and you just get a little bend, just not all the way around like sniffing your boot or anything like that. The horse just loosens its jaw, looks to the right a little, and kind of relaxes a little in the jaw and the neck. And you do that on both sides. If you can just at a standstill pick up a little feel, get them to understand that when you pick up the left rein, engage with the left rein, engage with the right rein, and kind of bring your thoughts across to that side to go in that direction. And you'll see them sort of soften a little, and you just work on that little bit of exercise where you're just loosening up the thoughts and the jaw, and they can just look a little bit. But then there's a point with some of the bracey horses have been ridden a bit that you just got to kind of do a turn and take them past the brace, because even with that little bend, when some horses are moving, when you go to bend them any further, they just kind of fight and they lock up and they won't turn. So, and I'm not saying this is right for your horse, but it's something that I do for just certain stiff horses, and if you keep doing it, you'll find the horse will start to turn. And this is where I say, chuck a U-ey as you go and you do a U-turn. So what you're trying to do is imagine if you set up a sort of a witch's hat or a marker somewhere, or a few markers, and you ride up to that marker. Your aim is to turn back in the new direction in the smallest amount of room that you can. So you're basically kind of bending your horse, and you're just picking up the rein and pulling until the horse bends all the way around as far as you can go, and the horse moves its feet in that direction. Not all the way that's around to your boot, but as far as you can to get that horse to come around a turn and go back in a new direction. And you'll feel a bracey bit, but sometimes you just got to take them through that brace and then let them off when you go in the new direction, and you just repeat it. So in between the turns, you loosen on the reins and just let them travel, and then you slide down, you bend, and the horse looks all the way around, and then you let them off and turn, and keep repeating it over and over on each rein. And sometimes just taking them through the brace and then letting them off in the new direction, they start to sort of become, they start to try and be on time instead of running late, and they'll start to sort of softly bend with the rein, think with the rein, and turn. Might take you 50 or 100 transitions on each side before you start to notice a change, or a good positive change. But a lot of times horses learn to avoid bending and looking, and they just kind of lean and fall over in their turns, and they kind of lock up. So sometimes, but I wouldn't do it in a bit, I'd do it like in a halter or side pull or something to start with. The other thing is, going back to what I said before about just getting them, you might just go stop, bend, look a little, and when the horse is looking, ask for just a little bit of energy where the horse just gently walks off to the left rein. So for the nervous horses that brace and the ones that get really frightened, what I just told you to do is just take them around the corner and take them through the bend. Sometimes there's a bit too much pressure and could make them scoot and be a bit worried. So those type of horses, if they really start to panic, if you sort of firm up on that rein and say, I'd like you to come through and bend while they're moving, then those ones you might want to slow down a little and go back to, like I said at the start, where you get a bit of a bend, they look a little bit, and then you get them to sort of maybe walk off a little bit in the direction that the bend is, and then you stop and you bend a little bit and you get them to walk off in that direction until they get more confident with bending and they don't feel sort of overly trapped or confined. But those horses that feel like they're in a trap and they panic, yeah, you've got to be a little careful with those, and sort of, you know, you grade the exposure into the bending into that rein, but eventually you want to be able to kind of bend them all the way in, and they'll just come all the way into that turn and come all the way around. But I've seen a lot of horses that people have done flexion all day long at a standstill, and when that horse is moving, it still locks up. So you've got to try and get the bend whilst the horse is on the go while they're moving. And basically, also just quickly before you go to turning your horse, if your horse is commonly, when you let it out on a loose rein, got a strong thought, it just marches along. Instead of having it marching along with a strong thought, I would actually pick up on the reins, and if it leans, say leaning's not available, back it a step, just to say let go of that forward push, and then ride it out on a loose rein. Pick up the reins softly. If the horse leans, then you just rock it back and say that's leaning's not available, pushing's not available, until the horse lets go of that strong forward thought. And then when the horse is a bit more aware, when you start to touch the reins, then you start to go, now I'm going to pick up one rein and turn you, instead of getting a sort of horse that's thinking 100 metres ahead or more, marching along and then trying to put it in a tight turn. You might get it a little bit more in tune, a little bit using a backup before you start to try and get it to bend and think into its turns.
That's great. Thank you very much, Mark. That's all we've got time for this week, but he'll be back to answer more questions next week.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jenny.
You can learn more from Mark online through his online training videos. Just search Mark Langley Horsemanship. There's over 380 training videos which everyone has access to with a 7-day free trial. If you like what you see, it's just $15 a month from there. That's help where you need it.